Lefties are a real interesting bunch. I've never seen such a lying, delusional bunch in my entire life. There's been a claim that's been made, which generally has been viewed as hyperbolic over the last couple of years, which is that Democrats are becoming increasingly anti-American, and it's a claim that Democrats have been trying to run away from. But if Democrats are not anti-American, why is there a constant assault on the American flag from Democrat voters and Democrat thought leaders? We're not anti-American, and the next day they're all burning American flags and chopping them into bits, getting triggered, going on MSNBC and saying, I have PTSD after I see American flags on the street. And why is it now that the New York Times started a competition to redesign the American flag, with some of the flag submissions being literal symbols of the quote decline of American superiority and a nation that has failed? And better question, how is a political party supposed to thrive? How is a country supposed to thrive with an entire party that thinks the country is irredeemable? How is a country supposed to thrive or survive without basic patriotism for what makes the country great in the first place? These are the questions we are going to try to answer. I gotta show you this campaign from the New York Times. It was absolutely lambasted on Twitter, and this one submission is gonna have you completely flabbergasted. But before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. So with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so I warned you, be prepared to have your mind blown. Let's venture into the collective mind of the liberal hive mind. The New York Times has published several redesigns of the American flag. Quote, these are all completely terrible. The American flag is an iconic and globally recognizable symbol of the United States, but anyone fond of the American flag's current look may not be thrilled with the new concepts recently published by the New York Times. The American flag is a potent piece of national iconography, but its design shifted frequently until the early 1900s. What if it were redesigned today? We asked artists and graphic designers to try. The flags they came up with reflect a mix of approaches. Some are functional designs, other artistic renderings, some represent America as it could be, others how the artists see the country now. The Times wrote in a piece which is labeled as opinion. And now take a look at some of the redesigns. This is what I believe. This was the flag that he submitted. The different colors represent our past, our future, untapped potential, repairing systemic racism, and taking care of our planet. Here's another one, a new flag designed by Na Kim. The colors of our flag are intended to stand for unity, valor, and justice. The gray monochrome flag represents America surrendering to its fall from power and loss of the ideals it once stood for. The American dream is being washed away. And that was pretty much a consistent trend throughout. Every flag was focused on one thing. America is this terrible, deeply racist place, and the flag must be changed in order to focus on that warped non-reality. There's one response here that says it all. This is terrible, all of it. And it really is, it's just absolutely terrible the way this next generation, specifically the liberal side, is so dead-eye focused on this concept of systemic racism. When they look at the flag, it's all they see, and they have been trained. Their minds have been warped to think that. It's literally the opposite of what the American flag stands for. I mean, we're talking about the early 1900s when the final design was created. Were there little pockets of hate throughout the country? Absolutely. You'll find that in literally any country. But what it was meant to stand for was a new beginning, equal rights, freedom, democracy. And you know what? It's lived up to that name, I'd say, quite well. This absolutely twisted view that America hasn't lived up to its standard is just so absolutely despicable. Find another country on the planet that's accomplished anything close. You'll be hard pressed because it doesn't exist. There is no place on planet Earth that has created and offered the American dream for so many different people of so many different backgrounds. Liberals are so funny talking about the utopia that is Europe, Northern European countries, as being so much better. Generally, they're referring to places like Sweden and Norway, Denmark, Germany, places like that, places that have been essentially ethno-states until like 2015, until the Syrian refugee crisis. These are places that had almost net zero immigration, small countries where everybody was of the same race. And they're referring to those places as even coming close to the diversity and true melting pot that is the American system. It's not even close. There is no competition. The American flag doesn't need a redesign. Democrat brains need to be rewired. I mean, let's talk about that for a second. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've covered so many different stories. Washington University students seen throwing away thousands of American flags for 9/11. New York Times and MSNBC Mara Gray, by the way, New York Times, the same outlet that started this competition to redesign the American flag, says that she finds it, quote, disturbing to see dozens of American flags on trucks in Long Island. We covered this from not too long ago after 13 US service members lost their lives. 13 American flags were placed on an overpass in California, which were swiftly vandalized by, of course, leftists. We've seen over the last 4 years Antifa across the country burning American flags, which has, of course, seemingly become the favorite pastime of leftist activists. But this wasn't the case. This is a shift change in culture. This is what the education system is doing to young minds. When I'm talking about rewiring the mind, I know it's possible because it's been done in opposite fashion. Democrats are claiming that they're pushing for progression and moving forward to a quote brighter future, but all they have done is create more division in society and elevate a new generation of Americans who absolutely despise everything the country stands for. I mean, if we're talking about demoralization, where it was claimed that it takes multiple decades to happen, that is exactly what's happening in the academic system from start to finish. That's why people have issues with CRT. This constant focus on everything negative, this constant division, this constant push that America is some deeply irredeemable, evil, racist place is not only ahistorical, but it's ripping the country apart. Let's put things into perspective once again like we always do. Let's do a little bit of a flashback. The media has become so anti-American, pushing Marxist ideals, social Marxism, cultural Marxism. I mean, at the DNC, for Pete's sakes, the American flag was upside down. That's happened in a very short period of time. In the early 2000s, right after 9/11, there was a wave of total patriotism within the entertainment industry. I was trying to find a good example of this, and I ended up digging up some Disney commercials from back in the day, which went a little something like this.
The flag means everything to me. It means life, it means freedom, it also means unity, and it means love. You see American flags everywhere, and it reminds you, but it also makes you really proud.
I spent my whole life pledging allegiance, and I don't think I can ever look at a flag the same way.
The flag stands for us as a group of people being united and being with each other in a time of need.
I saw a fire truck pass by the other day, and it had an American flag on it, and it was blowing in the wind. It was so amazing, and everyone just started clapping and cheering, and it was really special.
So Disney used to promote American patriotism. Now, well, Disney's pushing something else. Let's just leave it at that. The curriculum has changed in the entertainment industry, in culture, and in academia. And it... It is creating a generation of unhinged, anti-American, unpatriotic youths that are ripping the fabric of society apart. This is how you destroy a nation. You know, it's kind of interesting, a little bit ironic. If we go back to the flag submission from Na Kim, the colors of our flag are intended to stand for unity, valor, justice, etc. The gray monochrome flag represents America surrendering to its fall from power and the loss of its ideals that it once stood for. The American dream is being washed away. You know what? To a certain extent, it kind of is, slowly. But the flag that you present here, and the ideology that you stand for, is the culprit behind it. They're claiming America is dead as they suck the life out of the nation themselves. And it's getting to a point where the division has become so deep-seated, so filled with hate, that it's no surprise that the idea of secession becomes more and more popular. How do the people who still believe in the American dream, the American process, America as a social experiment in general, stand aside Democrats who desecrate the American flag and everything it stands for? Candace Owens released this absolutely beyond base tweet just the other day. I wonder if we're moving past the point of reconciliation with the left. Maybe we'd all be better letting them pick a few states they can turn into their own country with no guns, no police, no statues, no genders, no flags, no men, and no electricity. The United Freaks of America. And it's starting to get to a point where I think a lot of people feel that way. And you know what? I don't necessarily blame you. The left has become so divisive, so hateful, so anti-American. It's not hyperbole, it's fact that they have become impossible to live with to a certain extent. It's already impossible to have a discussion with them. You can't meet in the middle on anything. You can't even speak around them. I mean, for Pete's sakes, on their platforms. We can't speak without being depersoned and absolutely destroyed, govern alongside them, and expect anything positive. Candace Owens might be right. The chance of reconciliation with the left may have died a long time ago. I try to always be as optimistic as possible, but honestly, at this point, I may actually have to concede that point. I'm curious to know what you guys feel. Let me know in the comment section. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. These moments right here are the ones to remember. We're always talking about rhinos, Republicans in name only, traitors to the party, traitors to the movement and to the ideology itself. I shouldn't even say party because it's not about a party. It's not about the GOP versus the Democrats. It's about the America First vision. We always talk about the term snakes in the grass. Lindsey Graham is that snake in the grass. And whenever he pokes his head out and shows his true color and shows who he really is and what he truly believes, or whatever he's coerced to believe, whatever he's paid to believe, these are the moments that matter most. The way this guy just camouflages himself is absolutely despicable. He pretends to be your friend, pretends to be on the same team, and then the moment the cameras are off, he betrays you. He's the one politician on the Republican side who never gets listed. He's one of the top politicians on the Republican side who, whenever people are making lists of rhinos who need to be primaried or Republican traitors, neocons in general, he never seems to make the list, but he is by far one of the worst. Joe Biden's good friend. The guy who voted yes on all of Joe Biden's nominations, allowing Joe Biden to reshape the courts for generations. The guy who's thrown Trump supporters under a bus so many times throughout the last couple of years, but then when election season rolls around, he's kissing your behind and pretending to be on your side. And so that's exactly what I mean by these are the moments to remember. When Lindsey Graham's time is up for re-election, he's gonna be your best friend. He's gonna try to get an endorsement from Donald Trump. He's gonna be as America first as possible. But the reality is he's just playing you. Let me show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Let's move the grass blades away and uncover the snake that is Lindsey Graham. But before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so here's the thing. When this whole thing started in 2015, there were a whole lot of never Trump, anti-Trump Republicans. People like Ted Cruz, Glenn Beck, etc. But Ted Cruz and Glenn Beck, for the most part, they've been won over, they've seen the light, they've earned their respect, they've earned at least a little bit of credibility. People like Lindsey Graham, however, are just pretending. Lindsey Graham defends General Mark Milley's call with China. Appearing Tuesday on Newsmax's Spicer & Co., Senator Lindsey Graham said that he is okay with Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Mark Milley's phone call with China, in which he told Chinese counterpart that he would warn China if the US planned an attack against the communist regime. Now, Lindsey Graham is framing this whole situation as if Mark Milley was just trying to assure the Chinese that there wasn't going to be an attack, but it's a completely disingenuous framing. Mark Milley called his general contact in the Chinese regime and told them that he would warn them of an attack. He played into the anti-Trump hysteria as if Donald Trump was completely unhinged and ready to start World War III. He went behind the president's back and said that he would warn them of any US military action beforehand. I don't care what the context is, by definition, that is treason. But Lindsey Graham once again shows his true colors, as he is more than willing to defend Washington's swamp creatures before leaping to the defense of a president who's been subject to their unhinged attacks and harassment campaigns for the past 4 or 5 years. Lindsey Graham proves exactly what he is. He's not a Republican, he's not a Democrat, he's not an independent. He's a Washington swamp creature, just like Joe Biden and the rest of them. We talk a whole lot about Liz Cheney, but you know what? Personally, I have more respect for Liz Cheney than I do Lindsey Graham. Now, of course, I have no respect for either of them, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that at least Liz Cheney sticks by her guns. I think that what she says is absolutely ridiculous. It's clearly born from unhinged emotion and anti-Trump sentiment from her family and her connection to the Bushes, but at least she's honest and she's willing to die by what she stands for. That's commendable. You could be a die-hard commie. As long as you're honest about what you actually believe, I'll have a whole lot more respect for you than I will for somebody who's a wolf in sheep's clothing, pretends to be your friend, but truly behind the shiny veneer is a snake, a traitor, someone trying to pull a fast one on you. That's the difference. There is no difference between Lindsey Graham and Liz Cheney. They're cut from the same cloth, except one is more honest than the other. One is willing to go down and get exiled by the Republican Party, where the other is desperately clinging to power, working against the interest of the America First movement, but so deeply still wants to get elected. You know, like usual, his priorities always show. He's okay with General Mark Milley's literal treasonous acts, while the Republican voter base wants Mark Milley to resign almost unanimously. Lindsey Graham is, quote, okay with Mark Milley's decision to undermine the previous president and undermine the leader of his party. For Lindsey Graham, that's okay. But when the Marine officer who criticized senior leaders on Afghanistan is now in the brig, I'm sure you guys remember this clip and went extremely viral during the peak of Joe Biden's Afghanistan disaster. Well, considering everything that we now know, pretty much everything the Marine officer said in that clip has turned out to be absolutely on point, but he is now being held in the brig, another man's life surely to be destroyed. He's being treated as a traitor, while Mark Milley is given a pass. But really, the true traitor is back to Lindsey Graham, a guy with seemingly no backbone, a guy who every second week seems to be flip-flopping. Whatever he can get away with is really what he'll say. Donald Trump reportedly hung up the phone on Lindsey Graham after the senator told him, "You effed up your presidency." Lindsey Graham 6 months ago, "Trump may destroy the Republican Party, but he has a, quote, magic." Senator defends his refusal to abandon ex-president in Axios on HBO interview, even though Trump has, quote, a dark side. I wonder why he refuses to give up on ex-president Donald Trump. It's probably because Lindsey Graham's political career would be over if he showed what he truly felt. Now all of a sudden, Lindsey Graham says he wants Trump to run again in 2024, despite insults just days ago. Of course, he's saying that because Donald Trump is clearly the de facto leader of the party and there is no other choice. The American voter base is soundly behind Donald Trump, absolutely, and there is no other candidate in the running that's even close. I mean, that's a really hard decision for Lindsey Graham to make. Who could he possibly endorse? When it's easy, Lindsey Graham's on your side. If he has the opportunity to backstab you, he'll take it. That's exactly who he is. He is the same as the rest of them, part of the old legacy conservatives. Jeb Bush, Lindsey Graham, Liz Cheney, George Bush, Dick Cheney, the whole lot of them, cut from the exact same cloth. When Donald Trump's popularity dips, for instance, right after the January 6th, quote, riot, Lindsey Graham was paraded all over the media. It was his opportunity, him and Nikki Haley and the rest of them, disavowing Donald Trump. It was all Donald Trump's fault. How evil. Once people started waking up to what the true narrative was, and how Democrats and of course the Democrat media were blowing things out of proportion in a clear political effort to take down Trump, once they realized that it wasn't enough to take down Trump, all of a sudden they started to retract their statements, change their tone entirely, and are now all endorsing Donald Trump for president. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like people who are your friends when it's easy and your enemies when it's not. I like people who stand by you near unequivocally because they believe that you're a good, genuine person and believe your message. Lindsey Graham is the guy who's your best friend when you're making millions of dollars, getting extra tickets for him to join you at a football game, a baseball game, or a basketball game, paying for the tab at a bar, taking him out to dinner, tagging him along on trips to Vegas, etc. But then the moment the well dries up and business starts going bad, he is nowhere to be seen, and it won't help you get out of the dumps. That's exactly who Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley and the rest of them are. All they care about is their own political ambition, but really behind the scenes, they're Washington swamp creatures just like the rest of them. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. What an absolute mess this is turning out to be in two different ways. First of all, Joe Biden's administration and Joe Biden's policy plan is a total mess and a total blunder. And secondly, the process going on right now to pass this bill is equally as messy, if not more messy. And so this video inherently will be messy. We have so much to cover, folks. I'm actually making this video before Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats in the House even have a chance to vote in the infrastructure bill. So if you guys are seeing this afterwards, after the bill's either been passed or been blocked, just know that I'm covering all of this stuff before the bill was actually put down on the floor. And I guess we'll know if my prediction was correct or not, but really that's not the core concept of this video. What I really want to focus on is the total Democrat meltdown, like usual. Democrat Senator Joe Manchin. The guy is really starting to rub off on me. I very often give Democrats credit, but this guy, to a certain extent, is pretty based. And he has the Democrats screeching and wailing so incredibly viciously, so loud that you can hear it from miles away. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. TLDR, long story short, the Democrats are getting absolutely BTFO'd by their own party. It's looking like another massive L from the Biden administration. I'm going to update you guys on everything. But of course, before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so take a look at this. Joy Behar, Nancy Pelosi's best friend on The View, had an absolute meltdown as she realizes the grim outlook for Democrats.
But the Democrats have the numbers to make it happen. But Manchin and Sinema are standing in their way.
Especially
They call themselves Democrats, and they will be the ruination of this nation. Those two. First of all, Joe Manchin is never going to vote for climate change things because he gets $500,000 a year from coal production. Kristen Sinema she went to some kind of I don't know what it is. She went to a fundraiser scheduled this week with business lobbying groups that fiercely oppose Biden's social and climate spending bill. They don't want their taxes to be raised, and she's on their team. These people are destroying the country, in my opinion. We are so in trouble in this country. I don't know if people understand how dire the situation is. If Joe Biden loses, if the Democrats lose, the Republicans, who are so corrupt right now, and we all know that, they will move in. Trump will run in 2024. He might win because of all the cheating that's going on. We cannot let this happen. Manchin and Sinema must be brought to task. They are the enemies right now of the democracy, as you pointed out.
Now, what an unhinged rant that is just so preposterous in so many different ways. First of all, she referred to all the cheating going on, which is just wholly ironic. But secondly, she said something very interesting. She said Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are the, quote, enemies of the democracy. Isn't it just rich? Pro-democracy Democrats, anytime democracy works and they are held to account, they either cry foul play or they claim that democracy is not being upheld. This is literal democracy. She tries to paint this picture of Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, their votes on legislation being controlled by lobbyist groups, which is just such a disingenuous way to frame it. You know who they're representing? Moderates in their districts, their actual constituents, who don't want higher taxes, not just the big business that's behind them. And when it comes to coal, Joe Manchin is not bending over for the industry tycoons, but rather the jobs in his state, the little guy, the people who work there, the people who don't want to be decimated by Biden's agenda. They're representing their constituents very well against the absolute destruction of the American economy that Democrats are trying to pull here. And Democrats are just losing their minds. They just cannot handle the reality of other people having different perspectives and different needs and wants. It's my way or the highway, if not. And Senator Joe Manchin has been absolutely wrecking them. There's this one quote from Senator Joe Manchin that has liberals seething with rage. "I've never been a liberal in any way, shape, or form," from Senator Joe Manchin. Oh, and Joe Manchin also said this: "I cannot accept our economy, or basically our society, moving towards an entitlement mentality. Because I'm more of a rewarding," not exactly sure what he meant there, "because I can help those who really need help if those who can help themselves do so." And if that is not a total condemnation of the New Age Democrat platform, then I don't know what is. Senator Joe Manchin may be a Democrat, but Senator Joe Manchin is based. And let's just say that doesn't bode too well for Biden's agenda, considering the reality. Biden bets it all on unlocking the Manchinima puzzle. Of course, the mix of Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin's last name. Biden's success is tethered to Joe Manchin whether you like it or not. But Joe Manchin is just absolutely based and will not stop handing them L after L. Joe Manchin dictates terms to Democrats. Spending bills can't fund, word that we cannot use on YouTube, interestingly enough. The man just has integrity. Funding, said word we cannot use on YouTube, should not be put in a spending bill. He's a man of integrity. Passing a bill like that through the reconciliation process is wholly undemocratic. It's antithetical to the way the system is supposed to be ran, and he's not up for it. And Joe Manchin has not budged even an inch. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema recently had a sit-down meeting with Joe Biden, where Joe was hoping to win them over, but after Senator Manchin left the meeting with Joe Biden, here's what he said to reporters. Manchin on budget reconciliation talks. Joe Manchin spoke to reporters about the ongoing negotiations over federal federal spending and infrastructure. He said he proposed a $1.5 trillion top-line number for the reconciliation package months ago. He is not willing to go above $1.5 trillion for the spending package, meaning the Democrats have absolutely no choice but to cut $2 trillion off the bill. $2 trillion. Joe Manchin is also on record saying this. Manchin offers alternative plans to Democrats, quote, fiscal insanity. He's called their plan fiscal insanity. And you think the guy's gonna vote on it when it hits the floor of the Senate? Bad chance, folks. It's dead on arrival. And I mean, is he wrong? It's absolute fiscal insanity. Pelosi on Biden's $3.5 trillion tax and spending spree. It's not about a dollar amount. The dollar amount, as the president said, is zero.
It's not about a dollar amount. The dollar amount, as the president said, is zero. This bill will be paid for. It's about what are the values that we share and how we prioritize them. And that is the place that we will go.
If that's not fiscal insanity, then I do not know what is. Not sure what you guys think about that one, but the Democrats continue to shoot themselves in the foot. Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are representing their constituent, and they plan on doing that especially since they plan on getting re-elected. White House gives a wink to progressives as they threaten Biden's infrastructure plan. In an effort to put pressure on Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, any help is welcome, not realizing that the Democrats are shooting themselves in the foot. If Biden is giving a wink to progressives, trying to get them on board, and then expecting Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to side with progressives and this Looney Tune bill right before an election season, I mean, I don't know what kind of politics they're playing. Oh, a nice little tidbit to add on to the fiscal insanity that is the $3.5 trillion deal. Guess what little thing, and oh, real little thing, was snuck into the bill by Democrats buried under thousands of pages, which Democrats were hoping you wouldn't find. Buried. Biden's $3.5 trillion infrastructure package includes a plan that would give him the ability to fine companies up to $700,000 if they don't follow his federal mandate. It's not just fiscal insanity, it's also just flat out insanity. Now enough with Joe Manchin blocking the Democrats, putting a wrench in Joe Biden's plan. Let's go to the $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan. Now, as I'm recording this video, I'm watching C-SPAN on my second monitor, and the House is about to vote on the $1.2 trillion bill. We've covered this extensively, and usually when a bill like this is put on the floor, the Democrats know that they have enough votes. But something tells me it's not gonna pass. I'm either gonna be right by tomorrow or wrong when you guys actually see this video, but let me update you guys on what's going on, at least before the vote. Majority Leader of the United States House of Representatives, Steny Hoyer, Democrat Representative Steny Hoyer, was asked, "Are you confident that the infrastructure bill will pass?" Hoyer responds, "Nope." Now the progressives were backstabbed on this one big time. They demanded specifically that the $3.5 trillion bill pass first before the $1.2 trillion package is put on the floor. Nancy Pelosi declined their request and put the bill on the floor. And here's Representative Pramila Jayapal a couple hours before the vote. Jayapal, after meeting with Speaker Pelosi, we iterated this again for the Speaker. We're in the same place. This isn't about trusting the Speaker, it's not about trusting the President. It's really about the vote as an ironclad assurance in the Senate. From what we understand now, if we are to take progressives for their word before the vote, there should be anywhere from 20 to potentially 50 progressive Democrats in the House who will vote against the $1.2 trillion package after Nancy Pelosi backstabbed them. Now, it's not 100% sure, of course, politicians rarely stick by their word. Some do, some don't. But Nancy Pelosi might actually not have the votes here. Again, not like it really matters, because even if the $1.2 trillion package goes through, it's a bipartisan win for both parties. The $3.5 trillion bill, from what we see right now, is dead on arrival. And that means the Democrat agenda, Biden's agenda, mirrors that and is dead on arrival. Joe Biden might officially be a lame duck president. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. Now I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. How many times are we gonna hear it over and over again? The Democrats once again have been blocked. It really just goes to show how undemocratic of a group they really are. They have absolutely no care in the world for the separations of power, no care in the world for the other side or what the people want. They only care about promoting the Democrat agenda at any and all cost. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Why is it that every second week, every month, we're covering another story where Democrats lose a court case, Democrats get blocked? Democrats find that this is unconstitutional, Supreme Court slashes it. It happens over and over and over again because they try to subvert the system. They try to skirt the rules. It's their agenda above all else. Well, once again, the Senate parliamentarian has come in swinging and blocked the Democrats for the second time in a row trying to push amnesty through the reconciliation spending package. The rules are very simple. You need 60 votes to reform something like immigration. Reconciliation process is used one time every year, and it can only be used on spending, on budget. The Democrats don't seem to listen. They've been told you cannot do this. Their response was, yes we can, we're just going to ignore that ruling. And then of course they get blocked once again. And then they have the audacity to turn around and say that you're the undemocratic one. And people on the right side of politics are fighting to keep the system the way that it is, to make sure there's checks and balances. Name a single Republican that's looking to add seats in the Senate or stack the Supreme Court, that's looking to change the electoral process to benefit their party. It doesn't exist. But Democrats continue to show exactly what we know about Democrats. They're entitled, they're absolutely self-righteous, and when they don't get what they want, when they don't get their chicken tendies, they throw an all-out tantrum. Let me update you guys on everything that's going on. Another massive L for the Democrat establishment in their agenda. It's cutting real close, I'll tell you that much. The countdown to total Democrat political disaster is right around the corner. But of course, before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, take a look. Senate parliamentarian axes Democrats' immigration plan for the second time. The Senate parliamentarian rejected the Democrats' backup plan to introduce immigration reform into a spending bill. According to The Hill, Democrats asked parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough whether they could legalize millions of undocumented immigrants by altering the date they could apply for legal status. Disgruntled at yet another rejection, Democrats are already planning on moving forward with an alternate plan. It's unfortunate, I disagree with her, but we'll go to Plan C, Senator Bob Menendez says. Like I told you guys, the Democrats will stop at nothing. Legalizing illegal immigrants, creating increased incentive to continuously blow up the southern border crisis may be popular in California, but when you're talking about moderate voters in the country as a whole, it's deeply unpopular. Of course, the Democrats don't care. They don't care about moderates. They don't care what Republicans think. They're only trying to expand the Democrat voter base. It's no conspiracy theory that Democrats are in favor of illegal migration or granting citizenship to people who illegally migrate, because obviously those illegal immigrants will vote Democrat. If you think of it, it's almost like buying votes. We will look the other way when you illegally migrate into the country, and then even on top of that, we'll create a path for you to become a citizen, and then who do you think those migrants are going to vote for in the future? It's not a conspiracy, it's just basic knowledge, it's basic fact. And of course, we also know that Democrats are only in favor of illegal migration when it comes from Mexico. I mean, think about the turmoil that was just going on in Cuba a couple months ago. Actual Cuban refugees fleeing communist tyranny were trying to make their way to the coast of Miami, and Joe Biden told them not to come and was sending them back. Those on the Mexican border, though, he'll pretend to send back, and then 90% of them get released to different states. The majority of the American electorate does not support this, especially when they're educated on the topic. When you take into consideration that 1 million illegal migrants per year is a total drop in the bucket, I mean, it's a molecule in the massive scope of the world's population. And of course, when you're talking about the world's poor, bringing in refugees and economic migrants doesn't solve poverty across the globe. It does absolutely nothing. There's more people being born into poverty than America is accepting every single year. It's not philanthropy, it is literal vote buying. But the Democrats don't care, and they will continue Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, trying to get it through the Senate on a simple majority vote. I showed you guys this headline in the last time we talked about this topic. Ilhan Omar tells Schumer and the White House to, quote, ignore the Senate parliamentarian ruling on immigration and infrastructure bill. They don't even try to hide it. And then I absolutely despise the way they run around when it comes to political rhetoric, claiming the overwhelming majority of the American people support our plans. I mean, they're totally full of it. Not only does the American majority not support their plans on immigration, I mean, Joe Biden is literally under 40% when it comes to approval of his immigration policies, but the bill itself is actually deeply unpopular. The $3.5 trillion spending package is already unpopular, just based on the price tag alone, not even necessarily the element of trying to incorporate amnesty, which would most likely send it over the top and of course make it even more unpopular. We have polling data right over here. $3.5 trillion reconciliation package is, quote, deeply unpopular in swing districts. Like I told you guys, it flies in California, but in the real world, people are not with this stuff. President Biden's $3.5 reconciliation package is deeply unpopular in House swing districts across the nation. According to an American Action Network poll released on Wednesday, the poll sampled 400 respondents in 3 House districts where embattled Representatives Cindy Axne, Tom Malinowski, and Elaine Luria are incumbents. Respondents were asked the following questions. As you may know, President Biden and the Democrats in Congress have proposed a $3.5 trillion bill that they say would strengthen the social safety net, invest in climate change, expand Medicare, childcare, and paid leave, create universal pre-K, and make incentives for green energy adoption. Knowing this, do you favor or oppose Congress passing the $3.5 trillion bill? In Iowa and New Jersey districts, 51% oppose the package. In the Virginia district, 52% oppose it. Among those who strongly oppose the legislation, Iowa marks 43%, New Jersey 42%, and Virginia 46%. So the package itself is deeply unpopular. Now imagine adding amnesty on top of that, ignoring the Constitution, ignoring the will of the voters, ignoring the Senate parliamentarians' rulings, the rules in general of how legislation is supposed to be passed, and then claiming that you're the party fighting for democracy. I mean, the irony that they're called the Democrats in the first place is a complete farce. And it really puts the Democrats in a little bit of an interesting space here. You know, the political analysis on this whole thing that I've been saying since the start as well is that if Democrats don't manage to pass this bill, they will have absolutely nothing headed into 2022. I mean, this is kind of their final stretch if you think about it. This is their only chance on passing something big at a 51% margin, with only 51 votes in the Senate. Everything else can be blocked. Everything else has been a complete disaster for the Democrats. Representative James Clyburn says if we fail to pass these 2 bills, people will not forgive us. But it also looks like, based on polling data, that people don't want them to pass the bill in the first place. It's deeply unpopular in some of the most important districts. In all the swing districts that they need to win, people are not fans of the $3.5 trillion bill, the $5 trillion bill if you put them both together with the infrastructure bill. And so there might be an element of, look, we accomplished this big thing for the country, but there might also be the element of, you're gonna ruin the economy, this spending is completely out of control, we do not trust you anymore, and we're gonna put some extra checks and balances on the Democrats' ability to ram through legislation, especially when it comes through spending. And so no matter what, it seems like the Democrats are gonna lose on this one. You know, 2024 is pretty far away. It's not looking good for Joe, that is an absolute fact. But 2022, during a deeply unpopular president's midterm, with a voting base that in the last election voted Republican down ballot to keep Joe Biden in check, and then everything that's transpired over this year when it comes to all of the debacle, all of the crisis, and then Democrats trying to raise the debt to untold amounts, which of course signals higher taxes, less choice, and less economic freedom. It looks like the Democrats are going to have a very, very hard time in the districts that matter. The toss-up districts, the swing districts. Democrats are going to have absolutely nothing to run on. And even if in the long shot that they get this bill through, they're going to have to deal with the tax ads that they've gone progressive. The spending is completely out of control. It's the New Green Deal. They sided with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders on the $3.5 trillion price tag, and that will spell defeat and the end of a Democrat majority in the House. I can pretty much promise you that. That's what I got for you though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share it as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
日本法的料理源自天然食材养法理念，添加生姜、苹果精华，匠心调配，强韧秀发，防断修护。Hair recipe。
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Isn't it so funny how Democrats, and of course the Democratic media, Democratic journalists, news outlets, etc., it's all the same thing, we call it the Democrat machine. Isn't it interesting how they can just lie, spread totally destructive misinformation, and then the next week people seem to move on and forget about it? How is this okay? Quick answer, it's not. There is something deeply twisted, a disgusting double standard. It's hard to call it a double standard because really there's no standards on the left for truth whatsoever. The way no one holds them to account, fact checkers go on vacation to the Bahamas every time Joe Biden speaks, and then Democrats with their blah blah blah,
Blah, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah.
consistently railing on the right and Fox News for spreading misinformation. Axios has now officially deleted the second tweet in relations to quote whipping migrants after another camera angle of the incident has come out, which absolutely demolishes the left-wing narrative. Joe Biden, in response to that, said that those border agents will pay. Kamala Harris compared what she saw to slavery and the atrocities that happened hundreds of years ago. And now it turns out the whole thing was a hoax. The whole thing was used and abused by Democrats like it always is. And when it crumbles down to the ground, not a single Democrat can come out and say the right thing. We were wrong. We messed up. They will move on to the next thing and pretend it never happened. The damage has already been done. Axios deleted the tweet, but now you have millions upon millions of people who have a totally fabricated, twisting understanding of what happened on that day, and deleting the tweet will never change that. Issuing corrections will never change that. You know what might? The President of the United States having the cojones to stand up and say the right thing, clear the atmosphere and exonerate the agents who have been brutally, and I mean brutally, slandered in the media by him and his acolytes. If that chance like that's ever gonna happen, Joe Biden was elected because he was a man of character. The guy's got no character. He's the biggest political snake I've ever seen. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. But before we get into any of it, this video is brought to you guys by a sponsor, so let's play that clip. This video is once again brought to you guys by a big friend of ours, Raycon. And we are presenting you with the Raycon Everyday Earbuds. Folks, there is no comparison on the market. We're talking about top quality competing with all of the premium brands out there for a fraction of the price. But here's the thing, you're not paying a fraction of the price and compromising in any quality whatsoever. In fact, the opposite is true. A fraction of the price with outstanding and even better quality. They're built strong and built to last. They're ergonomic with multiple different ear molds to fit any type of ear. Built strong and they stay in place. And then of course on top of all of that, absolutely incredible audio quality. Every single quality, every single aspect that you are looking for in a premium earbud, the Raycon Everyday Wireless Earbuds, they got it. They have a great soft feel, they're incredibly comfortable. The battery life keeps getting better and better with now 8 hours of playtime straight and 32 hours of playtime if you use the wireless charging case. And just the cherry on top, you have a 45-day happiness guarantee because Raycon is committed to customer satisfaction. Folks, you guys know that I only work with a couple companies when it comes to sponsorships, and I only pitch products that I actually believe in. I just got an extra pair for my sister-in-law. She absolutely loves them. I love them. My family loves them. I use them on the go all the time to keep up with politics, listen to my favorite news channels while I'm at the grocery store going for a run, you name it. It's a great product, top quality, and of course everything for a fraction of the price. But it just got better. If you guys want to save 15% off your purchase, click the link down below at buyraycon.com/hivemind and find out how you can save 15% off your purchase. You'll be saving money and you'll be supporting a company that is supporting us here at the local Hive Mind. A huge thank you to Raycon, and now back to the video. Alright folks, so here we go again. Axios is supposed to be this great bastion of truth, a neutral conveyor of facts, sound journalists who get all of the information that they need before putting out a story. Fat chance. They're a corrupt extension of the Democrat Party, and their actions covering this story expose that as clear as day. This was the first tweet. New photos show Border Patrol agents swinging whips and charging their horses at Haitian migrants attempting to get to an international bridge in Del Rio, where thousands have sought refuge trying to seek asylum. Setting, there's no whips, those are reins, and there was absolutely no evidence of them whipping at anyone. Not to mention the framing of Haitian migrants who are just trying to seek refuge and seek asylum, 99% of which will of course lose their case of asylum and we know are economic migrants, and are not going through legal ports of entry but rather illegally skirting the immigration process. Not only did they lie about the whips, but they are setting a framing that fits the Democrat narrative. They deleted that tweet, issued a correction, but even their correction that was issued has now been deleted because the correction was still misinformation. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, folks. Why is it that a 28-year-old college dropout, that's me, literally sitting at my desk behind a microphone in my boxers, I'm not even kidding, got this story right and does a better job at reporting on the news than an entire news agency at Axios? Why is it that I was able to gather all of the information, see what CBP had responded, look at all of the video evidence from all the different angles and realize that they were full of it, but they can't? Of course they could, they don't want to. It's about pushing a narrative, it's about giving the Biden administration something to work with instead of reporting real news. Once again, Axios deletes tweets spreading disinformation that border agents were, quote, whipping at migrants. We deleted a previous tweet that referred to Border Patrol agents as whipping at migrants. The story has been updated to include comments from some journalists on the border who did not see whipping occur. They know exactly what they're doing. The worst thing that you could possibly do is underestimate your opponent. That's something I learned a long time ago. You're playing basketball, let's say you're a point guard, the opposing point guard's 5'2", looks scrawny, you might think, man, what's this guy gonna do? And then you realize he's a bullet and you're on your behind and he's already at the basket, drawing in the defense with a nice kick-out pass that leads to a three-pointer or a center getting an easy bucket. You don't underestimate your opponent ever. The worst thing that we could do is just say, Democrats are incompetent, they don't know how to do their job. They're just a bunch of dummies. They're not. They know exactly what they're doing. They do this stuff on purpose. It's all calculated, it's all connected. Our initial reporting on this story, we got the story itself right, but my prediction was that this was going to hurt Joe Biden, and it might have for maybe like 15 minutes. Lefties, of course, screeching on Twitter, how could this possibly occur under Biden's administration? I regret voting for him. And then instantaneously, the Democrats ran with it. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris all of a sudden showing their face, strongly condemning Border Patrol agents. They had their enemy, they had their story, they had the framing that they needed to make themselves look like the heroes of the day. And then I thought to myself, I said, wow, the audacity of these people, especially Kamala Harris being the border czar, she's in charge of the border, saying there's going to be an investigation into what's going on at the border. Are you going to investigate yourself? But none of it mattered. The facts didn't matter. It was good PR. It was a distraction from everything else that was going wrong. The whole border crisis and the whole Haitian migrant crisis in the first place. It created a distraction where they could seem like the good guys. Turns out, of course, they aren't, as now every single outlet is issuing corrections. New York Times issues correction after claiming Border Patrol used horse reins to strike at migrants, even with now the official narrative being completely debunked. Joe and Kamala got their win. They got their distraction, and they are not going to issue any corrections. No apology from Joe Biden after falsely accusing border agents of hitting Haitian migrants with straps. He said specifically they will pay for, quote, strapping Haitian migrants. I mean, talk about inflammatory rhetoric. They will pay. And using the term strapping, we merely saw border patrols whirling or swinging their reins, almost creating a barrier for Haitian migrants to stay away from their horse, exactly as CBP had said they were. And Joe took it to the extreme and now refuses to issue a correction. And see, that's the problem with this administration as well. Where is Joe? The guy doesn't even exist. With Donald Trump, you know, he might have said something that was wrong, he might have did something that was wrong, I mean, it happened. But then he'd get challenged on it the next day because he was always answering the press. And sometimes he'd say, look, I don't know, okay, it was wrong. Like with the whole bleach thing, etc. He goes off the cuff, he talks about something he doesn't necessarily understand, he screws it up, and then the next day he has to clean it up. Joe Biden creates a huge mess and then is nowhere to be seen. You can't ask him a question, he doesn't exist, there's no transparency, there's no apology, he only comes out, they only refer back to slavery, and Kamala Harris can come out and pander to specific voter blocks, and then Kamala's everywhere. We haven't seen her for a month. All of a sudden she's there. You think that's by accident? Of course not. It's by calculation. These people are absolutely disingenuous. Joe Biden's a political snake. Kamala Harris, the same thing. Frankly, the entire Democrat establishment operates in a sociopathic manner, and the way that we see them just take advantage and stand on the backs and stand on the graves of people who are suffering over and over again, it makes my stomach turn. People say I lack compassion or I'm not a good person because I believe in border control or I don't want to just endlessly give government handouts using taxpayer money. But what I view that as is common sense, sound fiscal policy, and also a little bit of tough love. But what the Democrats do and the way that they manipulate other people's problems for their own political gain, that is a true lack of compassion, and that is truly evil. I think there's a clear distinction between the two, and I think there is a clear right and wrong. I'll leave figuring that part out to you. That's what I got for you though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share it as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
啊，你写晓袂晓哈？你若袂晓吼，我拿去那个美容院的黄蓉啦。
会啦，这就简单，我拢甲你念呢。
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. I don't know how she does it. I really do not know how Jen Psaki can continue to do her job. I mean, you gotta be a sociopath or something to continually lie to the American people like this and still live with yourself. You know, being the press secretary is a tough job. Being Joe Biden's press secretary is probably one of the most difficult jobs on planet Earth. But in Jen Psaki's case, I can't exactly show her sympathy because she's just such a bad actor. She answers questions consistently in bad faith. She overtly lies from that podium over and over again while projecting this image of moral superiority from that podium, from her Twitter account, just in general. That Democrat political image of we're just such better human beings than you are. Well, if that's the case, then why are you such a slippery, slimy, snaky liar, a lying machine? And that's pretty much the intro. I mean, I don't really have too much else to say this video. Let's just cover Jen Psaki's most disingenuous moments over the last couple of days. It's something we've done before, it's something we've been doing frankly for 8 or 9 months, and something we will continue to do. But of course, before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so she is starting to crack. You know, it's interesting, generally there's that trope that the presidency itself makes you age a whole lot faster than the natural aging process. Barack Obama went into the Oval Office looking young and energetic, not a gray hair in sight, and after his 8 years, he essentially came out looking like Robert Freeman from the Boondocks. Well, see, when it comes to Joe, I feel like he's already so old and disconnected from whatever's going on around him that I don't think he's necessarily aging so quickly. He literally doesn't even know where he is half the time or what's going on, so how is he supposed to feel any level of stress? That stress, however, seems to be falling on the shoulders of Jen Psaki, who has an increasingly more difficult job as the entire administration plummets into the ground, and she is slowly starting to snap. Take a look at these two examples. Watch, Jen Psaki snaps at reporter after being asked about Biden's plummeting poll numbers.
Okay, thank you everyone. On the polling, the president's polling continues to collapse. I'm aware of that. How to shout it again. Next time we'll do it during the briefing. Thanks everyone. Thank you so much.
A little catty to say the least. You can tell she is stressed. That's the funny thing when it comes to Joe Biden's administration. He screws everything up, and then his handlers and everyone around him have to figure out who's gonna get the blame and who's gonna come in and try to clean the mess. Remember Kamala Harris's famous quote that got leaked to the media? They're not gonna put this S on me, as the administration continues to put more on her agenda and make her in charge of pretty much everything that's falling apart under the Biden administration. Well, Jen Psaki is in the same position, and you can really tell by the body language. Take a look at this clip right over here. Take a look at the movement of her eyes when she's questioned about Afghanistan.
Oh, sorry, I was calling on him. Go ahead, go ahead.
So sorry.
Oh, right, it's okay. Go ahead.
Today marks 4 weeks since the last U.S. troops left Afghanistan. And since then, the U.S. has helped at least 160 Americans and U.S. residents leave.
It has been over a month since the initial bad news from Afghanistan. The Democrats, the Biden administration, have been trying to do everything to move away from it, and it continues to haunt them. Joe Biden's approval ratings continue to crater, and that look right over there is the look of political desperation. They just want it to go away so bad, but it's not going anywhere, and rightfully so. And of course, it's not just Afghanistan. You know, if it was just Afghanistan, Joe Biden's numbers wouldn't be as low as they are. There would be some hope of redemption. It would just be one specific part if you really wanted to scatter the blame. I mean, it's pretty tough now with all the reporting, but you guys get what I mean, right? One crisis is bad, but Joe Biden's compounding 4, 5, 6 crises is untenable, and Jen Psaki has to come up with answers for all of it. She was just asked about Hunter Biden's laptop, which has been confirmed to be a legitimate story, whether Joe Biden is still sticking with the story that it was Russian disinformation. In the most outrageous political response of the month, Jen Psaki says, we still believe it's Russian disinformation, essentially, and so Jen Psaki sticking to her guns of being the most disingenuous political propagandist in Washington. When questioned about the border, she is still sticking with the absolutely debunked claim that Biden's border crisis is seasonal or cyclical.
Immigration system until we have an asylum processing system that works at the border. we're going to continue to see cyclical challenges like this.
So Jen Psaki insists that a 21-year high in illegal border crossings is cyclical. Well, I guess it's just that 21-year immigration cycle that all the Harvard researchers were telling us about every 21 years. 2.5 million illegal migrants will storm through the border. I mean, you have to be just a straight-up liar. The way Democrats just insult your intelligence, treat you like you're dumb, like you have a rock for a brain and can't put two and two together, is completely unbelievable. You know, at this point, the Biden administration is at such a rock bottom. I don't want to give them advice, but I will. When everything is going so bad, everything is crumbling around you, probably the worst thing that you can do is respond as if you are in denial. If they would just accept responsibility, say, you know what, we screwed up, we're going to try to change things going forward, show a little bit of open-mindedness, some people might actually forgive them. They might actually start going up in the polls. But these absolute Washington narcissists would rather play manipulative PR games, use manipulative messaging tactics to try to distance themselves from the absolute chaos that they've created. And it's one thing if they're manipulative, it's one thing if they're narcissists, sociopath, whatever you want to call it. A lot of politicians fit into those categories. That, mixed in with sheer total incompetence, is what truly makes this administration so dangerous. Let's talk about the economy. Another crisis right around the corner waiting to happen. When Jen Psaki was questioned about the increase in taxes on corporations, the reckless spending in relation to inflation, take a look at how she answered.
I want to ask you about what Republicans are pointing to in the analysis from the Joint Committee on Taxation. They say, according to, if I've read the chart correctly, more than 16% of taxpayers would see their taxes increase under the bill that's approved by the House Ways and Means Committee. Will the president sign that bill as it is coming out of that committee, or will he insist on the changes so that he will maintain his commitment that taxes won't go up on people making $400,000 a year?
I have not looked at the document or the report that you have put out. Obviously the president, or that you have referenced, I should say, that the Republicans put out. Obviously the president's commitment remains not raising taxes for anyone making less than $400,000 a year. There are some, and I'm not sure if this is the case in this report, who argue that in the past, companies have passed on these costs to consumers. I'm not sure if that's the argument being made in this report. We feel that that's unfair and absurd, and the American people would not stand for that. But I will take a closer look at this report. We feel that that's unfair and absurd, and the American people would not stand for that.
That's unfair and absurd, and the American people would not stand for that. Well, unfortunately, the American people won't have a choice. The markets act the way they do, and if the price of beef goes up, you now have to pay an extra $1 when you go to the grocery store when you buy beef. It's pretty much that simple. We're just going to continue with this ridiculously incompetent economic policy that passes down the financial burden to the consumer, and then we're going to expect you to do something about it. It's literally your job to do something about it, not to screw up the whole system and then expect the voter base to fix the problem that you created. I mean, hopefully I'm explaining this correctly, but you guys understand how absurd what she just said is, right? We're going to tax corporations. We're going to put a heavier burden on job creators and corporations, which is going to reduce their profit margins, and then in turn they're going to have to increase prices of their products, maybe slash the number of employees they have as well, and then it's your job, the American people, to say that that's not fair and fix it. I mean, I'm not going crazy, right? That's crazy. I get taxation of the ultra wealthy. Taxation of the actual income that they take out of the company. I get that. Like, let's say Jeff Bezos gave himself a salary of $350 million. A salary, meaning he took it out of the company in his name. I get targeting that money, but targeting the company itself, increasing corporate tax rates for not only major businesses, but all businesses, impeding their ability to compete, purchase products, expand their business, hire employees, offer competitive prices, etc., that makes absolutely no sense. Unless you are trying to absolutely destroy the lower and middle class and small business in general, and only enable the mega corporations who are inevitably going to find a loophole around it, or the major corporations that have such incredible profit margins that they can take the hit, the Walmarts and the Amazons, etc., will be the only players in those retail segments in the economy in general left able to thrive and survive in that environment, which is probably the logical response. I think that's exactly what the Democrats are doing. This isn't a play for the little guy. This is a play to the tech and retail corporate giants. The Democrats doing what they do best, manipulating your votes in order to further widen the wealth gap and benefit the billionaire corporatists who are now behind the Democrat Party. It's either Democrats are totally incompetent and have absolutely no idea what they're doing, or the Democrats know exactly what they're doing. And the second part, sadly enough, is probably more likely and a whole lot more dangerous for you. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share it as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, the channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Yep, so it's pretty much confirmed at this point. Joe Biden rarely tells the truth, and by rarely I mean pretty much never tells the truth, but we did in fact capture one moment where what Joe Biden said was accurate, and that's this.
I am President of the United States of America. And the buck stops with me.
The buck stops with Joe Biden. That statement, in fact, is so true that this entire Afghanistan debacle that Democrats and even Liz Cheney type Republicans have been trying to pin on Donald Trump and pretty much anybody but Biden, well, we now have confirmation that the entire thing falls on one man's shoulder. Sleepy, creepy, piss pants Biden. What an absolute non-surprise. Everything that he said leading up to the Afghanistan debacle, and of course during the aftermath, all of it has been nothing but lies. It was all about electoral politics. Biden was slumping in the polls, and so he wanted to use the end of the Afghanistan war as a way to campaign on September 11. He not only lied to the American people pre and post Afghanistan withdrawal, but we now have absolute confirmation that he was warned specifically beforehand not to withdraw in the hasty manner that he did. He disregarded all of the advice, all of the warnings from the military top brass and intel communities, gambled with American and Afghanistan civilian lives in a long-shot political play that blew up in his face. You have a president who seems to be actively acting against the interest of the American people and the country as a whole. A president who acts in selfish manner, a president who lies, and a president who is now directly responsible for the catastrophe of Afghanistan more so than ever before. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here, but before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, take a look at this. General Milley and General McKenzie appeared under oath in front of the Senate, where a very important Joe Biden talking point has now officially been debunked. Who remembers this little clip right over here from George Stephanopoulos' show on ABC?
Your top military advisors warned against withdrawing on this timeline. They wanted you to keep about 2,500 troops.
No, they didn't. It was split. That wasn't true. That wasn't true.
They didn't tell you that they wanted troops to stay?
No, not in terms of whether we were going to get out in a time frame, all troops. They didn't argue against that.
So no one told, your military advisors did not tell you, no, we should just keep 2,500 troops. It's been a stable situation for the last several years. We can do that. We can continue to do that.
No one said that to me that I can recall.
So Joe Biden says, no, they didn't. It was split. No one said that to me, quote, that I can recall. That's probably Joe Biden's defense, considering his brain no longer functions. Well, that quote really hasn't aged well and shows you just how much of a disingenuous, corrupt liar Joe Biden truly is.
But I will give you my honest opinion, and my honest opinion and view shaped my recommendation. I recommended that we maintain 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. And I also recommended earlier in the fall of 2020 that we maintain 4,500 at that time. Those are my personal views. I also have a view that the withdrawal of those forces would lead inevitably to the collapse of the Afghan military forces and eventually the Afghan government.
A direct, flat-out lie from the president. He lied the entire time. He lied about the reality on the ground a month before the actual exit, with a phone call transcript with him and the Afghani president where he pressured the Afghani president to lie on behalf of him. And now we find out that he also lied about the intel that he received. He had the information that he needed to avoid this disastrous withdrawal, and he ignored it. The president went rogue. I mean, it's nothing new considering he's pretty much been going rogue throughout his entire presidency with all the executive orders. But what an absolute disaster. It wasn't Trump, and honestly, as much as I dislike General Milley, it wasn't General Milley either. It was Joe Biden. 100% unequivocal at this point, Joe Biden's fault. The fall of Afghanistan and everything that transpired after was the result of Joe Biden's shoddy decision-making. Democrat Obama cabinet members don't say that Joe Biden's been on the wrong side of nearly every foreign policy decision over the past couple of decades for no reason, do they? Here's another one. It's so bad, in fact, that even CNN is covering it and slamming Joe Biden.
To the point, the generals repeatedly testified that they recommended 2,500 troops stay in Afghanistan. They thought that was the best way for the situation. Some said maybe as many as 3,500. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas made reference to an interview with George Stephanopoulos of ABC News where the president said, no one said that to me that I can recall about keeping troops. No one said that to me that I can recall. The Republicans are saying the president lied to the American people.
Well, and two of them both testified that, yes, they had recommended keeping 2,500 troops there. Now, what I imagine the White House will point to is that caveat, that I can recall.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. Even the liberal media industrial complex admits Joe Biden is full of it. Headline after headline as the Afghanistan withdrawal continues to haunt Joe Biden. Here's Washington Times opinion. Biden really created a bungle with his hasty, ill-planned, even iller executed withdrawal from Afghanistan. The article itself is titled, Biden, the Taliban's best friend, or Employee of the Month, Joe Biden making the Taliban great again. Once again, meme has become reality. I mean, each and every step of the way, Joe Biden screwed it all up and then tried to blame everybody else but himself. I'm sure you guys have heard the words Bagram Air Base, which was the most strategic US airbase in Afghanistan, one that was once again hastily abandoned, handing over millions of dollars of munitions straight into the Taliban's hand, without even the fight when Joe Biden specifically knew that there was a serious threat of a total Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. He's been criticized for that specifically, and once again, it's another element of the Afghanistan withdrawal where Joe Biden was specifically warned about the potential tragic result if that in fact happens.
General Milley, were there options given for keeping American troops in Afghanistan rather than the unconditional chaotic withdrawal?
Yes.
You presented options, and those options were declined.
There were options presented and debated?
Yes or no?
The decision was made.
Yes, sir. Yes or no is fine. Did you at any point create options for keeping Bagram open beyond July 2nd?
Yes.
Did you provide options for keeping Bagram open directly to the president?
Yes.
Once again, more advice that Joe Biden completely ignored. It's just lie after lie after lie. Here's another one, Joe Biden's August 31st deadline that left thousands of Americans stranded behind enemy lines. By the end of it, he claimed it was a historic airlift, the greatest that the world has ever seen, trying to take victory laps after his totally botched withdrawal and evacuation. Well, now we have rescue workers that are showing up on Fox News, saying they are appalled by the Biden administration and saying that the number of Americans left behind is closer to 1,000 after Joe Biden's administration claimed there were only 100 people left in Afghanistan.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. Definitely there are more than the 100 that is being stated. We have multiple groups working together with teams of rosters of people, and we continue to scrub those rosters to make sure that we know where these people are at. I do want to say as a veteran quickly that I'm appalled at our administration and how they have disrespected Americans and our allies.
And so given Joe Biden's very consistent track record of being wrong and of course lying, who here are we to believe? The politician who endlessly lies to save his own face, or the selfless rescue workers who risk their own lives to clean up the mess that he created? It's the same thing on the border. Who are you gonna trust? The guy who created the problem and continues to spread misinformation and pretend like the crisis doesn't exist, or the Border Patrol agents on the ground every single day trying to secure the border? The answer is very obvious to me. And all of this was supposed to be a massive victory for Joe Biden, who could take credit on September 11th to ending the 20-year war. Well, it turns out that Joe Biden might have just extended that Afghanistan war and the Middle Eastern war for generations to come.
Is the war on terror over, General Milley?
Absolutely not.
General McKenzie?
The war on terror is not over, and the war in Afghanistan is not over either.
Has the exit from Afghanistan made the war more challenging for us or less challenging with respect to continuing to try and protect the homeland and U.S. interest abroad?
Senator, just made it more challenging.
General Milley, you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
The war in Afghanistan is not over, it's now more challenging to protect the United States, and you have Joe Biden to thank for that one, especially after he droned 10 innocent civilians. Joe has done nothing but escalate the issue and create greater national security threats than before. This is what corruption and incompetence gives you. If you voted for Trump, or if you didn't vote at all, or if you voted for a third party, none of this is on you and your conscience is clear. If you voted for Biden, I think you have some serious thinking to do. That's what I got for you. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. It's the comeback of the century, as I've titled it many times before, man versus machine. The orange man versus the entire Washington swamp and establishment. They did everything to destroy Donald Trump, but it just isn't working. They'd have to put the guy under in order to even stand a chance, and we all know that's not happening. Donald Trump is headed full steam ahead for 2024. And the greatest part of all is just the momentum swing, folks. We've been covering it for the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months really, but it has been kicked into high gear. Donald Trump dominating Kamala Harris and Joe Biden by double-digit leads in the most recent Rasmussen poll. But really it's the cultural shift. More and more people are coming to our side. Yesterday we spoke about comedian Russell Brand. The day before, we spoke about Rihanna and her Think While It's Still Legal t-shirt. A couple days before, Nicki Minaj. And the celebrity class is slowly but surely starting to receive a serious wake-up call. Well, here we go. Now we have Joe Rogan flat out saying on his podcast, how is Joe Biden gonna win? Claiming he thinks Donald Trump's gonna win in 2024. Sentiment is changing. It's interesting. Donald Trump got banned from everywhere. The man was depersoned, silenced, exiled from internet society, and he just continues to become more and more popular, and his prospects to win the 2024 election in epic fashion, total Rocky Balboa fashion, become greater and greater and greater each and every single day. And let me show you guys how the whole thing is turning around. But before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. With that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so just take a look at the first headline for this video. Joe Rogan believes Trump will run in 2024 and probably win. Quote, how is Joe Biden gonna win? Joe Rogan delivered a dire prediction for President Joe Biden and the Democrats in the 2024 election. The hugely successful podcast host doesn't believe Biden or Vice President Kamala Harris have what it takes to win the 2024 presidential election. Amanda Knox, the American woman who was wrongfully convicted of taking the life of a roommate in Italy, appeared on a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. Knox mentioned Silvio Berlusconi, who was a real estate developer, media tycoon, and three-time Prime Minister of Italy. Knox compared Berlusconi to Donald Trump, and then asked if the former American president was going to run again in 2024. Oh yeah, Rogan replies. He's 100% going to try, and he's probably going to win. Rogan asked a series of questions, which doubted Joe Biden's cognitive abilities. How is Joe going to win? How is it possible he's going to beat anybody? After you've seen him speak, after you've seen the decay and the decline, how is it possible? Knox agreed that Biden was not very inspiring. Rogan then bashed the Democratic Party for selecting a 78-year-old gaffe-prone president. They've done a terrible job, Rogan proclaimed. The Democrats effed up royally by making this guy president. Knox wondered if the Democrats would select Harris instead of Biden to run in 2024. However, Rogan shot down that proposal. She would lose just as badly, the UFC analyst retorted. She's the most hated vice president according to polls. The least liked, I should say, vice president in 50 years. Rogan was citing an Economist/YouGov poll released in the summer that found 48% viewed Harris unfavorably and 40% described the vice president's job performance as very unfavorably. Kamala Harris has become the most unpopular US vice president 6 months into an administration since at least the 1970s, the Telegraph said on August 1st. And so this is exactly what I mean when it comes to sentiment. Joe Biden is a perfect gauge for a centrist, moderate lefty. I mean, of course, the far lefty lunatics think Joe Rogan is some sort of alt right conspiracy theorist. Anybody who's right of Karl Marx is basically a right-wing fascist. But for the most part, the people who watch Joe Rogan's show and most of the people who are part of the quote intellectual dark web are more of a classical liberal type. I mean, Joe Rogan stated on multiple occasions that he wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders. And see, that is the exact type of voter that Democrats went after full steam in the 2020 election. Vote for Joe. He's not Donald Trump, he's just a moderate politician in a suit. He's harmless, just vote for the moderate Democrat. Well, a lot of people did. They fell for it and they got slapped in the face. Frankly, slapped in the mouth. And sentiment is changing like we have never seen before. I mean, Democrats have some serious hurdles to overcome here. One of them is the state of Florida, a state that has 29 electoral votes and a state that has largely been a swing state for a couple decades. Well, it seems as though no longer. Florida is becoming a Republican stronghold. Essentially, it's becoming the new Texas. Democrats face bleak outlook in Florida. Democrats sound the alarm on bleak outlook in Florida. The state of Florida has long been considered a battleground state for elections, but in recent years, the state has not only gotten more conservative, but it also appears that Republicans are only growing stronger in the Sunshine State. According to a report from The Hill, several Democrats are sounding the alarm about how bleak Florida is looking for them. It feels a little bit like we're kind of set up to fail, an unnamed Florida Democratic official told The Hill. It's not any one person's fault. A lot of these problems have existed for years, but for a party that has been decimated in the last few elections, and especially the last one, I'm not seeing any sense of urgency yet. And this stuff's important because all of the gains the Democrats made in 2008 and onward with Obama are all essentially evaporating. I mean, the 2020 election, Democrats had literally every advantage you could possibly name. There were a lot of things that happened, let's just say, and they still barely won. Now, they have the most unpopular Democrat president in modern history, with the most unpopular vice president in modern history, and they plan on taking the most charismatic Republican of all time with the strongest grassroots base that you have ever seen? Fat chance, folks, the Democrats are done. And all the indicators are saying the same thing. Donald Trump may not have been a two-term president because of certain factors. Maybe not 2 consecutive terms, but it seems as though Donald Trump is on track to be a 2-term president with a little bit of a gap in the middle. I mean, for instance, let's go to Iowa. Generally, polling data in Iowa can give you a little bit of an outlook on where the country's headed. And here's how bleak it really is for Democrats. 62% of Iowans disapprove of Joe Biden's performance. 62%, folks. I mean, Joe Biden's underwater, but the aggregate polling data does not tell you the whole picture. This is what I've been trying to tell you guys. Democrat politicians, Democrat presidents need to be above 50%. They have all of the population centers. They have the popular vote. New York City, which is a Democrat stronghold, has 8.6 million people. Los Angeles has 4 million. Chicago has 2.7 million. Houston, Texas has 2.4, and they still can't even manage to win Texas. Philadelphia has 1.6 million. They have the population, which means that Joe Biden's approval rating has to be at least 49%. 49% is bad. Obama finished his final term, I believe, around 48% or 49%, and it led to a catastrophic loss for Hillary Clinton, which was deeply tied to the stagnant 8-year period of Obama's administration. Looking at the aggregate values, where these polling institutions are oversampling Democrats and taking Democrats from California and New York and count, you'll see inflated numbers for any Democrat candidate. But if you go to where the moderates are, and if you go to the specific states that are important to actually win the election, through the Electoral College, that will give you the whole picture. 62% of Iowans disapprove of Joe Biden. That's bad. Joe Biden's approval rating underwater in Minnesota. And Minnesota is pretty much a state that's been disregarded at this point and almost conceded to Democrats every time. I mean, for Pete's sakes, the state was ravaged by Black Lives Matter, and they still voted for Democrats anyways. Well, Joe Biden is underwater there. And then talking about the aggregate, Joe continues to crumble. Now with the worst approval rating we have seen, a 45% approval with a 50.6% disapproval, a -5.2 spread, which is by the way inflated by a Fox News poll and a Harvard Harris poll. If you look at the most recent Rasmussen poll, which is generally more accurate than all of those other outlets, the lowest number Joe Biden has ever seen in his generic approval rating at 40%, with 58% disapproving, a -18% spread. Finished doesn't even begin to describe it. The Democrats are done. We also have this right over here. Only 46% of 2020 voters would vote for Joe Biden today. He won 54% of the vote, if I'm not mistaken. In 2020, he won 51.3% of the vote. That means he's down 5.5 points from 2020, and he only needs needs to be down like 0.3 or 0.5 to lose in the coming election. And so panic sets in, folks. The Democrats are absolutely desperate. The Democrats played themselves, they shot themselves in the foot, and hopefully they're about to get their just dues. With the greatest G. Otis, Rocky Balboa, Trump boxer comeback story of all time. One for the history books, folks, and I can feel it. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well, Nancy Pelosi is doing Nancy Pelosi things, putting her own priorities in the future of the Democrat Party ahead of the American people. And really, there's only one word to describe how the Democrats are feeling right now, or the top brass of the Democrat establishment, and that's desperate. That's panic. This is their final chance. It's their final attempt for redemption in the catastrophic era of the Biden administration, with absolutely everything going wrong surrounding Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The Democrats need a win, and that only, quote, win can come through their massive spending bill, where they can then campaign on the short term. Despite all of the odds, we managed to pass Joe Biden's platform. And I say short term because most likely, if they end up getting these bills passed, the economic devastation that follows in the long term definitely won't be a political win. But for now, they need this. And so Nancy Pelosi is desperately campaigning and trying to get the votes. But from what we are seeing right now, folks, let's just say it's looking pretty grim for Nancy Pelosi and the Democrat establishment, as chances are she's about to get blocked. Let me update you guys on everything that's going on, all of the angles surrounding the spending package. But before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. With that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so we have to start off with this headline right over here. It's just absolutely crazy when I tell you that Nancy Pelosi is doing Nancy Pelosi things in full campaign mode to get the votes for this $3.5 trillion deal. Just take a look at this. Nancy Pelosi on Democrats' $3.5 trillion social spending bill. Let's not talk about the numbers, dollars.
So again, the Senate and the House, those who are not in full agreement with the president's rate, let's see what our value, let's not talk about numbers, and dollars, let's talk about values.
You know, on this massive $10 trillion package that we're trying to push forward, $5 trillion alone between the two spending packages, not counting everything else. You know, this thing that we definitely can't pay for unless down the line we cut the Trump tax cuts, increase taxes across the board, gas tax, mile tax, you've heard it all. The IRS snooping on your bank account, your PayPal, your Venmo. You know, this massive $5 trillion spending bill that's estimated to double the deficit within, I think, a 10-year period. Let's not talk about the dollar signs. Let's talk about, quote, values. And so once again, Democrats prove one thing: they cannot govern. Let's talk about values and emotion. Values and emotion are nice and all, but for the most part, save that stuff for the chick flicks in Hollywood. When you're talking about the economy and fiscal responsibility, when you are talking about potentially eviscerating the middle class, let's talk about numbers. Let's talk about pragmatism and doing the right thing to ensure economic stability for the next generation. Let's not talk about numbers. Let's just talk about values and the feelings. Let's take care of the world's poor people. Let's give everybody free things. It sounds good, it makes you feel like a good person, but it's absolutely stupid, and there's no other way to describe it. But luckily for you, the dysfunctional Democrats are still at war. Nancy Pelosi is desperately trying to get the progressive wing and the moderate wing to come together and push the entirety of the package, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill and the $3.5 trillion spending package. But like we covered before, they're in a little bit of a weird situation here. Nancy Pelosi has a very slim majority in the House, meaning she needs pretty much all Democrats, or at least most of them, to vote together to pass the legislation through. But progressives are only going to vote on the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill if the $3.5 trillion spending package goes first. They're essentially taking the $1.2 trillion bill as hostage to try and guarantee the $3.5 trillion spending bill makes its way to the Senate, and the moderates are doing the exact opposite. They don't want to vote on the $3.5 trillion package. The price is too high. They want to pass the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill first, and then make amendments to the $3.5 trillion bill. And so here is where the progressive wing of the House comes in. Representative Pramila Jayapal, 50 House Democrats will oppose the $1.2 trillion bipartisan bill.
So 48 Democrats will vote against the House infrastructure bill if it does not come with the budget reconciliation package. Is that right?
More than half of our members will vote for both bills. And this was the deal, Jake, that came out of the Senate when progressive senators passed the bipartisan bill in the Senate. It was on the specific understanding and commitment that both bills would move together. And so now we want to make sure that both bills are moving together, and we're going to hold to that commitment. And so, yes, more than half our members will not move the bipartisan bill without the reconciliation bill being passed.
The progressive wing of the House is going to thwart Nancy Pelosi's efforts. And so now Nancy is in this position. Nancy Pelosi breaks promise, pushes $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure vote to Thursday. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat from California, broke her signed promise to moderate Democrats and pushed the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure vote to Thursday. The moderates said, get that $1.2 trillion bill on the floor so we can vote on it first, and immediately she is now extending that vote to Thursday as she tries to win over progressive votes in order to get that bill through first. And so the Democrats are in a little bit of a lose-lose situation. I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but try to bear with me. The progressive base, which usually stands by its guns and takes it to Nancy Pelosi, is claiming they have 50 people who will vote no on the $1.2 trillion bill. That means Nancy Pelosi is not even close to a majority to pass it through. But even if the progressive Democrats get what they want and then pass the $3.5 trillion package first in the House, it's immediately just going to be shut down and won't even pass the reconciliation process in the Senate, as Senator Manchin and Sinema have made absolute statements that they will unequivocally vote no, and the bill is essentially dead on arrival. And trust me, if that $3.5 trillion package goes to the Senate and the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill hasn't passed, any moderate Democrat in the Senate who votes for that thing and capitulates and bends over to the progressive wing of the Democrat Party is going to face some serious scrutiny for re-election in 2022. So the progressives are playing this game of political sabotage where they're pretty much guaranteed in the end to lose. Then if the $1.2 trillion bipartisan bill passes with progressive Democrats caving in, which we know they have already, then the $1.2 trillion bipartisan bill will pass the Senate. Credit will be distributed in bipartisan fashion for the most part to Republicans and Democrats. Joe Biden won't get a massive win. Progressive voters are going to be very, very angry, and the progressive caucus will have absolutely no leverage to the inevitable cuts to the $3.5 trillion bill that will happen thereafter. Moderate Democrats want to take that $3.5 trillion price tag and turn it into $1.5 trillion, essentially slashing it by 55 to 60%. And honestly, that's probably the most likely scenario. On Thursday, the $1.2 trillion package is going to go forward. The Democrats are going to vote on the $1.2 trillion package, and as we've seen, progressive Democrats a lot of the times cave in the end. The whole cutting funding to Israel and their Iron Dome, the amendment from 4 days ago, where progressives voted no to fund Israel and their Iron Dome, claiming they didn't want to fund an apartheid state. Well, in the end, even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez broke ranks with her Democrats and changed her vote to present. Here's the thing, she did it right after Nancy Pelosi confronted her about it.
What a day for a backstab!
And so as you can see, Nancy Pelosi has a conversation with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and then you see the nay vote go from 9 to 8 with one as present. Of course, then followed with crocodile tears as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez cries on camera.
The House Resolution, I inform the House that Ms. Lawson will vote nay on House Resolution 483 amendments. He votes nay.
And then apologizes to her voter base. AOC is deeply sorry. Deeply sorry. AOC explains why she voted present on increasing funding for the Iron Dome. And so it seems that pretty much no matter what the Democrats do here, a very large portion of the voter base is going to be unhappy regardless. The best win that they could get is to just pretty much pass everything, regardless of the economic effects down the line, and just say, look at all this stuff that we did. We funded everything for everyone, free Teslas for everybody, and continue to campaign from 2022 to 2024 for on successfully passing the Biden agenda. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. One way or another, there's going to be a very unhappy sect of the Democrat voter base. Moderates are most likely going to win in the end, and it's going to look more like a Republican moderate victory, holding Democrats accountable, holding Joe Biden accountable, than the Democrat revolution that they're hoping for. And this is why the House and the Senate need to flip in 2022. People need to be motivated and mobilized to vote, because this...
So again, the Senate and the House, those who are not in full agreement with the president's right, let's see what our value, let's not talk about numbers and dollars, let's talk about values.
It's gotta stop. Now, I know there was a whole lot of information there. Hopefully I did a good job conveying all the different dynamics. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. What an absolute incompetent. Since the day Joe Biden announced that he was running for president, we've been focused on one concept that essentially encapsulates the man as a politician. He will literally say anything for you to buy what he's selling. There's a word for that. You know, they call the orange man that a whole lot. It's called a con artist. Who is the real con man? The guy who promised you he was going to do something and then delivered? Or the guy who oversells and underdelivers? The guy who promises and then breaks the promise? Or the guy who tells you everything's going to be all right when he knows that it truly isn't? And here we go again. Democrats are aiming to push the Biden agenda before 2022 with trillions, and I mean a whole lot of trillions, in government spending like you've never seen before. All predictions are pointing to the direction of a massive, bloated deficit. In fact, more than a doubling of the deficit in a very short time frame. People are predicting continued inflation, not just through 2021, but even 2022, potentially even getting worse. And what does Joe Biden tell you about his massive spending package? He literally said it will cost $0, that it will be 100% paid for. Absolute liar. The statement's flat on its face ridiculous the moment you read it, but now things are put into perspective a whole lot better, as a new public policy study suggests a very grim reality in the wake of Joe Biden's spending plan. Joe Biden must be stopped at all costs, and I'll show you guys exactly why. But of course, before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, and with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so first off, where are the fact checkers? Where are the Twitter fact checkers? Where's the rest of them? With such an egregious statement. Joe Biden, my $3.5 trillion agenda costs $0. First of all, it's not a $3.5 trillion agenda, it's more like a $10 trillion agenda if you really add everything up. But let's take a look at what he said. My Build Back Better agenda cost $0. Instead of wasting money on tax breaks, loopholes, and tax evasion for big corporations and the wealthy, we could make a once-in-a-generation investment in working America, and it adds $0 to the national debt. This man is the most economically illiterate buffoon I think that has ever been president. It will cost $0. First of all, that's just propaganda. Inherently, spending trillions of dollars, whether or not it creates a deficit, it still costs money. This is once again disingenuous Democrat framing to pass the legislation even though you will be hit. It says it literally at the start of the next sentence. It'll cost $0, except for the quote wasted money on tax breaks that Donald Trump gave you. You know those Trump tax cuts? You can expect those to be gone real soon. Tax breaks in general, your 401k as well. You can expect some serious capital gains tax, tax at the gas station, tax on your vehicles. It's all coming down the pipe. Tax evasion for major corporations and wealthy. Give me a break. As if billionaire-backed Wall Street Joe Biden is truly going to tax the wealthy elite. Give me a break. As if Hollywood is voting to pay for more taxes. The Democrats know they won't be able to do that. If they do, major corporations are going to leave and you're going to see the greatest economic devastation in modern American history. This is just bad policy. And then this absurd statement on the last statement of his tweet. It adds $0 to the national debt. Do you truly believe, whether Republican or Democrat at this point, any spending bill, any spending year will add $0 to the national debt? Those days are long gone. And this is just a flat out overt lie as the Biden administration kicks into high gear trying to get their spending bill through. It's all propaganda, it's all politics. shifting the message away from the Biden border disaster, the Biden inflation disaster, the oil crisis, Afghanistan, and trying to get one victory. Well, here's the victory. It may be a victory for Joe Biden's re-election potential in 2024. It may be a victory for the Democrats potentially retaining the House and the Senate in 2022, considering they'll have messaging, but it's certainly not a victory for the American people. Study Biden's legislative agenda to kill 5.3 million jobs and generate $4.5 trillion in debt. Joe Biden continues to claim that he's the greatest jobs president in modern history, with people just going back to work after their jobs were furloughed at a very low rate, I might add. A total failure, especially after he's devastated specific industries and killed thousands upon thousands, if not 100,000 jobs at this point. But now we're seeing if the Biden economic agenda goes forward, Joe Biden might break records in terms of jobs in the opposite direction, killing the most amount of jobs in American history and packing on the most debt of any of his predecessors. Donald Trump's last year was pretty bad with the whole coof pandemic. It was uncharted territory. Democrats also controlled the House at the time. He added on a whole lot of debt. That was during a crisis. Joe Biden might be on track record to do even more damage when it comes to federal debt, without a pandemic as an excuse, just Democrat incompetence. The study also suggests that the United States gross domestic product, the GDP, will be reduced by $3.7 trillion, nearly the cost of the massive $3.5 trillion reconciliation package. Biden's legislative agenda will additionally cost American families a combined $1.2 trillion in reduced income via tax increases to pay for the costly package, the study reveals. The study also broke down the cost of Biden's social welfare spending by state, analyzing Texas, Arizona, and West Virginia. Arizona, where Senator Kyrsten Sinema resides, and who is opposed to much of Biden's massive tax and spending, will absorb $97 billion of the cost and the destruction of 115,000 jobs. West Virginia will absorb $24 billion of the cost and the destruction of 29,000 jobs. Texas would absorb more than both of those states combined. The Lone Star State would be saddled with $394 billion in costs and 467,000 jobs lost. The Texas Public Policy Foundation study summarizes the following impacts of the tax and spending agenda. The top marginal income tax rates with federal, state, and local taxes are over 65%. Corporate taxes are up by a quarter to 26.5% for the third highest combined rate of 30.9. In OECD, marginal tax increase of 13 points on some households, capital gains tax rate of up to 25%, marginal income taxes of small business raised by 24%, multiple severe marriage penalties are imposed, effective tax rate on large estates before state and local taxes is 61.1%, taxes raised on tobacco and vapor products primarily used by those earning less than $400,000, and so it goes on and on and on. Joe Biden may not come in and increase your taxes by targeting your income specifically, but the plan is to get you in different ways. He wants to tax the products you use. He wants to tax the company that you work for. He wants to tax your inheritance, etc. It sounds nice in theory. I mean, theoretically, paying your taxes, you're supposed to get something for it. But who truly is naive enough to believe that the federal government will do a better job than industry? It's just not going to happen. Yet Joe Biden's plan is essentially to decimate industry, to make money worth less, to make your salary, your income, your savings worth less through inflation, to devastate millions of jobs by putting a heavier tax burden on job creators and corporations, and to increase the size of government, the likes of which hasn't been seen in generations. You might not know this, we've covered it briefly, but in Joe Biden's spending package, there's a little part that allows the IRS to spy on your PayPal, your Venmo, your bank account, the in and out transactions, etc. And he also plans on hiring, I believe, 200,000 new IRS agents. They are spending money to figure out how they can get more money from you. We are talking about some seriously radical stuff, and even Joe Biden is starting to cozy up to it. Joe Biden cozies up to the radical left. I used to be called a moderate, he states. Well, no longer is that true. He also said this.
And I know I always kid you when you all ask me about, well, what about, are you going to get A done, B done, C done? Well, I say, you want to negotiate. I'm being a bit facetious, obviously, but here's the deal. This is going to end up, I believe, we're going to end up getting both the pieces of my economic legislation. The first piece, the 1.9, fundamentally changed the structure and the nature of the economy in this country. Even though, remember, it got clobbered. It was this terrible thing, no Republican voted for it. Well, we got real economic growth.
he will fundamentally change the structure and the nature of the economy in this country. You know what? I think that'd be pretty cool if the person you were looking up to was a serious visionary with an incredible idea to make an actual egalitarian economy. But Joe's not that guy. You're talking about entrusting Grandpa Joe with a melting brain to rewrite the economy for 300 million Americans, which will of course have trickle-down effects for the entire globe. What you're talking about there is total economic devastation, like I keep saying. Joe is not the right man for the job in general, but especially on the economy. As from the analysis that we are seeing right now, Donald Trump's predictions that Joe Biden will destroy the economy might have in fact been prophetic. Joe Biden must be stopped. 2022 is looking to be one of the most important elections in modern history. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share it as much as possible. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. It's just absolutely perfect. Yesterday we were talking about memes and the connection of memes and Donald Trump's campaign, the culture war. I showed you guys that picture of Rihanna wearing a t-shirt, "Think while it's still legal," which for all intents and purposes would be perceived as a right-wing free speech meme. And I said this may seem small, but I truly think it's the first thing ever that I have seen that is convincing me that we actually may be winning this culture war. Lo and behold, literally the next day, another massive, and I mean massive, red pill is handed out to millions upon millions, with Russell Brand, this guy, another Hollywood celebrity, not to mention another left-wing celebrity, essentially now confirming to his millions of viewers that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats are full of it, and Donald Trump was right the entire time. We are seeing a total shift in the dynamic, folks. More and more people are realizing each and every single day that not only was Donald Trump not that bad, not only was Donald Trump mostly right on almost every single major issue, that all the Trump-specific scandals that Democrats were promoting were in fact hoaxes and witch hunts, but people are also realizing that the Democrats are essentially evil. Seems like a strong word, but the word fits. I mean, not only does it fit, it's essentially a perfect match. A match made in heaven, or a match made in hell, depending on how you want to look at it. So let's get into it, folks. Let me show you what Russell Brand was saying. Let's talk about the dishonesty of the media, the dishonesty of the current administration. But before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so let's first start off with this right over here. Comedian Russell Brand. Trump was right about Hillary and Russia.
The world moves so fast, there's almost no time for history. It seems like years ago that we were hearing that Trump was colluding with Russia, that he wouldn't have won the election without Russia, that his whole presidency was a kind of Putin plot. Well, there's now serious evidence that it was the Clinton campaign and Hillary Clinton acolytes that were directly involved in the generation of what has proven to be a conspiracy. Untrue. Think about how much media you watch. Me, a person who I think, broadly speaking, is from the left, a liberal, certainly not a Trump supporting Republican, with respect to those of you that are, I find myself in awe, gobsmacked, flabbergasted and startled by these revelations that Russiagate was a Democratic conspiracy.
Boy, oh boy, was that spectacular. And let me tell you guys exactly why it is not just spectacular, but even a level beyond. YouTube and the tech titans, the tech overlords, they can suppress me and other guys like me within the right-wing circle. They do. I have the analytics to prove it. We've been over it a million times, but they certainly aren't suppressing Russell Brand. And this video that he released, folks, take a look at the numbers. 1.82 million views, with 122,000 people who liked it and 3,000 disliking. That's got to be like a 97.8% like ratio or something like that. Just think about the red pills that were handed out. Think about so many people who aren't paying attention. They don't pay attention to little guys like me. They're not actually reading articles or following court documents, what the FBI is doing, investigative reporting. They're just following the media, following celebrities, and then one of their revered celebrities, Russell Brand, comes out and says, you know that crazy wacko idea that Rachel Maddow's been putting into your brain for 4 years straight that Donald Trump is a Manchurian candidate working with the Russians, and the only reason that he won in 2016 was due to Russian interference and Russian meddling. Yeah, that's a whole bunch of BS, and it was actually Hillary Clinton behind all of it. Well, just imagine the amount of people who went very quickly from "I'm with her" to "lock her up." You know, the whole political rhetoric surrounding Hillary Clinton, that she should be in jail, etc. For the most part, people probably thought it was partisan extremism, hyperbole, whatever you want to call it. But it turns out, you know, those people might have actually been right. And it goes beyond just the fact that it was a witch hunt. It wasn't just a witch hunt to take down Donald Trump. It wasn't just a fake story propagated by Hillary Clinton's campaign to take down Donald Trump to make him seem illegitimate, to then be used as an excuse to try to impeach him multiple times. It was even more evil than that, because they were claiming that Donald Trump had worked with the Russians, and then it turns out that it was actually Hillary Clinton working with the Russians and working with Christopher Steele to create this phony narrative. And then her literal campaign lawyer shows up one day to the FBI pushing this ridiculous Russia Alpha Bank story, claiming that Donald Trump had a secret server, a secret hacker server in his basement that was connected to the Russians in Alpha Bank, where they were funneling money. And Trump had this whole army of Russian tech operatives who were going around spreading misinformation and convincing people to vote for him, and spreading lies about Hillary Clinton and her campaign. All of it was more true about Hillary Clinton than it was of Donald Trump since the start. And no one's been held accountable. In fact, quite the opposite. The exact people who helped Hillary Clinton pull this fraud on the American people, pit Americans against each other, and create this horrible divisive nature and divisive dichotomy between the right and left base. Well, a ton of those people have gotten promotions and have gone from relatively nobodies in the political world to now Democrat Biden administration cabinet members, of course, like Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan pushed Alpha Bank claim at center of Durham's possible indictment. Did Jake Sullivan commit perjury? Emails reveal lie on Trump. Jake Sullivan, of course, the guy who continues to lie for Joe Biden at that podium. The Democrat deep state operative who's Joe Biden's top national security advisor. How to get a promotion within the Democrat Party, commit an act of treason, and try to unseat a duly elected president, lie to the FBI, push the most egregious fake news stories you could possibly imagine, create total social chaos within the American electorate, and boom, you are on your way to a cabinet position in the next Democrat administration. So absolutely twisted. There must be severe negative consequence for the Democrat establishment for this horrible, destructive lie. And the best sign that we are seeing so far that Democrats will be held accountable and the referendum on the Democrat establishment is right around the corner is the fact that moderate Democrats and moderate liberals are waking up, like Russell Brand and Glenn Greenwald. You know, Glenn Greenwald is a lefty. He's also one of my favorite journalists. He's always on Tucker Carlson's show, and he's someone who's on the left side of the political spectrum that you can have a conversation with, that sees the evils of the corrupt Democrat Washington class. Someone that you could actually sit at the table with, have a rational discussion with, and meet in the middle on many issues. Those people getting red-pilled on this exact type of issue is once again one of the greatest signs that we have seen thus far. The more people realize all of the BS that comes out of the Democrat establishment in the social media world, the more people continue to get red-pilled. It's not happening the other way. Nobody's getting blue-pilled, but people are continually getting red-pilled. You know, this whole Hunter Biden laptop thing, the laptop from hell, is just another example. Like Glenn Greenwald tweets, it's been 6 days since political reporter at Shrek Reports published a new book verifying the key emails from Hunter's laptops, including Joe's role in the China deal. Not one outlet that spread the CIA lie that it was, quote, Russian disinformation except Politico has even mentioned it. Now that we know that the laptop from hell and the accusations of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's business dealings were in fact credible, how is the Biden administration responding? Well, of course, with a disgustingly disingenuous lie once again.
Thank you, Jen. Two topics really quick. First, the president has said, and you have tweeted, that allegations of wrongdoing based on files pulled from Hunter Biden's laptop are Russian disinformation. There is a new book by a Politico reporter that finds some of the files on there are genuine. Is the White House still going with Russian disinformation?
I think it's broadly known and widely known, Peter, that there was a broad range of Russian disinformation back in 2020.
Wake up, people. The Democrats are not the good guys. The Democrats are borderline, if not full-on, evil at this point. Wake up and smell the coffee. And so hopefully my prediction is correct. 2021, 2022, hopefully 2023 and 2024 will be the greatest red pill to the masses event ever seen, making 2016 pale in comparison. In 2016, the seed was planted. In 2024, we might see the true blossoming effect. At least we can hope. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. This administration is really something else. There is a trend when it comes to Democrats and of course Joe Biden's administration, where if they could spread a narrative instead of actually telling the truth, especially when it comes to saving their own behind, they do it. And it takes such immense and incredible political pressure for them to finally admit the truth. Everybody knows it's true, we know the reality, and all you're waiting for is for Joe Biden and literally any of the minions that surround him to just acknowledge reality. But it never comes easy. Remember during the summer of riots in 2020, it took Joe Biden over 100 days to literally come out and say, I condemn violence and violence is bad. Cities were burning, billions of dollars in damage. Donald Trump since day one said this is absolutely deplorable. It took 100 days for Joe Biden to utter the words, violence bad. They were more focused on Orange Man Dad and saying what needed to be said. It took immense political pressure only until it started to affect them in the polls. Did Joe Biden do what was right, and reluctantly so, which in the end takes the righteousness away from the act in general? And this is a trend that has continued. Joe Biden has been facing crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis, and has responded to every single crisis with lies upon lies upon lies. And only when the lies are finally disproven and the legacy media actually does their job reporting on it, only when the political pressure mounts do they admit the truth. And that's exactly what's going on with the southern border. The claim has been that the Biden administration is on this whole border situation and they're sending illegal migrants back across the border. Then based on some investigative reporting, it turns out that 90% of the people apprehended and held at Del Rio in Bidenville were in fact released into the country. And of course, even on top of that, none of them were tested for the coup. The Biden administration denied all of it until finally the truth came out, and now all of a sudden changed their tone. I have never seen such disingenuous politicians in my life, folks. And let me show you guys exactly what's going on. But before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so finally we have confirmation from the Biden administration. Another conspiracy theory turns out to not be a theory at all, but rather just conspiracy. DHS Alejandro Mayorkas says as many as 12,000 out of the 17,000 migrants have been released into the US. Well, it could be higher because it definitely is. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas admitted Sunday that the vast majority of Haitian migrants who crossed the southern US border in recent weeks have already been released into the United States, and it is possible that more will follow them. So far, approximately 12.4 thousand of the people are having their cases heard by immigration judges, while 5,000 are being processed by the Department of Homeland Security currently. Only 3,000 are in detention. Approximately, I think it's about 10,000 or so, 12,000, Mayorkas told Fox News Sunday. When asked how many have been released, he then acknowledged that this number could very well go up as 5,000 other cases are being processed. And so once again, Trump was right, constantly railing on this system where people are allowed into the country given a court date, and then of course subsequently skip those court dates as they know they never had a true legal case for asylum in the first place, and more illegal migrants continue to funnel into the country, bringing in a variety of different problems. Crime and of course downward pressure on wages to be the two most common. But nowadays there's another risk. The Biden administration has gone full on tyrant mode when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic, when it comes to you and your jab status, testing, etc. Your 2-year-old kid is being forced to comply with these draconian measures, but people who illegally migrate, caravans of tens of thousands of individuals, are clearly not held to the same standard now, are they? Once again, Biden's administration admits that that is exactly what what they're doing. Biden's DHS chief admits the US did not test Haitian migrants for the COOF-19. The COOF is used as a political weapon, as a political tool for the Democrats, and that's pretty much it. If Obama gets together with nearly 800 people in an insulated tent, maskless, on top of each other, the Emmys the exact same thing, it's definitely not a super spreader event. It's a sophisticated and fully jabbed event. If Trump supporters get together for a Trump rally, it's a super spreader event and Donald Trump is literally a murderer. All the meanwhile, literally millions, and I mean millions, of illegal migrants have been released into the country without a COOF test, and Democrats don't even bat an eye. They keep blaming Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, but if you think about it, why is it that the highest caseloads for the most recent wave of the COOF-19 all happened along the southern border as millions upon millions of people crossed it, unvetted and untested? More lies and more hypocrisy. Every single day, every single week, Biden himself and of course his minions are caught up in another egregious lie. Joe Biden literally just threatening Border Patrol agents saying they will pay for, quote, strapping Haitian migrants, something that is patently false, something that, once again, they have refused to recant, they have refused to pull back, and they have taken advantage of in corrupt manner for political gain. Such an overt, blatant lie that even Jake Tapper takes Alejandro Mayorkas to task on that exact issue.
What appearances might have been and the public outcry about them.
But that's the thing. Some of the initial descriptions of those images were just patently false. There's now video out there that provides more context. Having seen the video, are you certain that there was actually wrongdoing?
I am going to let those investigators make that determination.
And so how is anybody supposed to take this administration seriously? How is anybody supposed to take anything that they say on face value? It's nothing but BS. Let me give you guys a prime example using Pravda Jen Psaki. Recently, she's quoted as saying, "We're a little tired of Republicans criticizing us for Biden's border crisis."
There are a lot of Republicans out there giving speeches about how outraged they are about the situation at the border. Not many who are putting forward solutions or steps that we could take. So we're a little tired of the speeches. We'd like to partner on solutions and working together to address this problem that has not been partisan in the past.
We are tired of Republicans hammering us on this crisis that we've created at the southern border. They keep saying how outraged they are, but don't provide any solutions. I mean, what? All the solutions that were put in place, Joe Biden's executive orders undid. It's actually very simple, and the Republicans, especially Trump Republicans and Donald Trump himself, have given you the clear answer since day one. How do you fix this Biden border crisis? It's very, very simple.
We're building a beautiful wall, a big one that really works, that you can't get over, you can't get under.
Just build a wall. End the human suffering, the importation of crime, the creation of an underprivileged, underserved underclass in American society, and build the wall. Secure the damn border. It's pretty much that simple. In fact, it's so simple that even Fox News' local Democrat, Chris Wallace, who was instrumental in getting Joe Biden elected in the first place, is quoted from yesterday during a podcast saying, "Build a fence or build a wall."
I don't think that the Border Patrol, they ought to be able to find a way to keep people from coming across the border. Build a fence.
Yeah, a wall, maybe?
Yeah, I was going to say, build a fence, build a wall, have some kind of a gate so they can't walk across that dam.
Which of course is never going to happen. And frankly, the border crisis itself, improvements at the southern border, will not happen under Biden's administration, because this is exactly what Democrats wanted in the first place. I mean, here's another quote from Jen Psaki. "It's not constructive for Biden to visit the crisis on the southern border. It's not constructive for the president to visit the southern border and speak to border agents, speak to politicians and even Democrat politicians on the southern border and get an idea of the reality on the ground and what really needs to happen. That's not constructive. From their perspective, keeping Joe Biden locked up in his playpen in Wilmington, Delaware, is apparently more constructive than actually doing their jobs. The incompetence, and it's not even incompetence, all of this stuff is calculated. It's just corruption. The corruption of this administration sees no bounds. And the way that they respond to these issues, the way that they hide the truth, the way that they lie, manipulate, and twist is essentially proof of exactly that. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's been caught. The Black Bloc Antifa coward who indiscriminately fired shots into a bunch of Trump supporters, hitting one of them in the leg, has been arrested. And so another Antifa goon bites the dust. But you know what really bites the dust here, folks? The Democrat narrative around domestic extremism continues to crumble. And of course, we continue to highlight it. It's just yet again another confirmation. It all started off where we were suspecting that it was in fact an Antifa member, never reporting that as fact. Antifa members were claiming that the Trump supporter had shot himself in the leg. Then the video evidence came out and now the man has officially been arrested. Another one on the books. As I always challenge lefties in these videos, I'm still waiting for one example, just one example of a Trump supporter in a politically motivated attack. Not even necessarily as egregious as a shooting, literally just an unprovoked random attack from a Trump supporter, targeting a leftist for absolutely no reason, completely unprovoked. Well, of course, no one's ever going to take me up on that challenge because it doesn't exist. But Antifa shootings, Antifa assaults, Antifa political terrorism continues to ramp up, and that's exactly what's going on here, folks. They're getting more violent, more extreme, and the Democrats and the establishment continue to ignore it. Of course, something we will never do. We will continue to highlight it, so let's get into that, folks. We got some stuff to talk about, but before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. With that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Well, here we go, folks. Another story the mainstream media has completely ignored. Olympia man arrested after being caught on camera shooting at Proud Boy member in Olympia, Washington. Olympia police arrested a 36-year-old Olympia resident Thursday for the September 4th shooting, which occurred during dueling protests between groups allied with Antifa and the Proud Boys. I'd say that's a little bit of a misrepresentation. The Proud Boys set up a rally, set up a protest, and Antifa were harassing them. But we'll let that one slide from the post-millennial. The suspect was booked into Thurston County Jail for first-degree assault. Olympia police said in a statement that the investigation, as well as investigations into other disturbances that happened that day, is ongoing. And so the double standard continues. As Trump supporters and right-wingers are demonized, frankly, at this point criminalized, far-lefty extremist, literal terrorists. At this point, it's not even up for discussion. One homicide last summer in Portland. Now in Olympia, Washington, we have an attempted homicide. But where's the news coverage and where's the crackdown? Where is Twitter dispelling misinformation or going after incitement to violence and encouragement of violence when it comes to these Antifa goons? When Tiny Toese was shot, thousands of far lefties on Twitter were claiming that he shot himself. Overt misinformation. Here are some examples from Andy No. Antifa propaganda accounts are claiming without evidence that Toese shot himself. Video recording right after the shooting shows he had both of his hands full, carrying a shield and a stick. Take a look at these tweets in this Instagram post. Tiny shot himself in the foot while trying to shoot anti-fascists today in downtown Olympia, Washington. Overt lies and misinformation. Seeing more reports that he shot himself. Seeing more reports, meaning seeing more Twitter propaganda that social media platforms refuse to crack down on.